Hi, this is Lynn Bauer, and I'm doing my recording for the delivery activity, discussing the delivery elements and my thoughts on what makes each of them have positive and negative aspects. The first one on the list is volume, and when I think of the positive aspects of volume, I think of the ability that we have with our voice to project, which means to talk louder or loud enough that our voice projects or carries across the room, especially if we are in an area that we are giving a public performance that is quite large and we don't have access to a microphone. We want to make sure that we are talking loud enough that we can be heard the entire way to the last audience member at the back of that space, so that they are walking away from the speech hearing everything just as well as the person who was in the front. We can also use our volume in a positive way to express emotions. If we are feeling very powerful about something that we want to say, we might raise our voice. If we want to talk about the softness of something, we might lower it just enough to express and convey those emotions. The negative aspect of that is we don't want to use our volume in a way in which we are no longer being heard. We're not projecting. We are too soft in how we are presenting our voice when we are delivering our speech, so that people can't hear us. This usually happens a lot of times when people are nervous and it's hard for them to, project out. Another thing that could also potentially be a negative aspect is if we are constantly talking too loud, that we come off as aggressive, and it just sends the wrong message for what our speech wants to convey. So you want to make sure that you are working with a volume that is appropriate for your space, and that you're using a volume in a way that is actually going to emphasize your speech and not make it become too much or too little. The next one on the list is eye contact. And when I think about eye contact and communication between two people, we know it's important because it shows that we are paying attention and that we are engaged in what we are communicating with each other. So the same concept in a positive aspect is when we are delivering a public performance. We want to make sure that we are having eye contact with our audience members. That may be scanning the room as a whole or really looking at people individually, so that they feel that they are really important in this conversation and that we truly want to share what our thoughts are with them. The negative aspect of that is that if we do not have our speech prepared, let's say we're looking down at our notes, or we're scared and we're looking down at the floor, it shows that we're just not committed to be there. And it doesn't give the professionality that we need for having our speech being able to convey its message and have its audience members actually want to listen to it without feeling agitated, because really it might be a waste of their time if that's how we present ourselves. The next on the list is rate. The positive aspects of using rate, or the pace in which we talk, is that we can use it to our advantage, once again, for a dramatic effect. Let's say we are giving a speech and we want to talk about something that was quite scary, and we use our pace to increase, to have that emotion of the fear that we felt. Same with something that is quite serious. We might really slow down what we have to say because this is important. The way that pace can hurt us is if we talk at a rate in which we are no longer fluent and we are going too fast. This is another one of those instances in which we are scared, and when we are talking too fast, what happens is that our audience members cannot retain what the speech was about, let alone important details that maybe we wanted them to remember, and the whole thing just ends up being a kibosh because we went through it too fast and nobody got anything out of it. The next one on there is pitch. We can use pitch in a positive aspect when we are giving public performances, because unlike volume, which is a little different, our pitch can show excitement or sadness, and the little subtleties that we use when we speak, the little variances in which our tone comes out to express what we're trying to say. The negative aspect of that is we would become very stonic, very monotone. Our voice stays at one level. We always talk like this, and then the speech becomes a very long, boring, and you feel like you're in a meeting and you just want it to end. So it really is a disadvantage to us if we don't really show the variances in our pitch, the way that we can express ourselves. The next one on there is facial expressions. I tie this one really closely with eye contact because just like in a two-way conversation, you want to be cordial, you want to be inviting a smile on your face to really show that you are passionate about what you have to say and that you are super happy to have audience members there that are listening and you want them to listen. And I think obviously when you come in with a smile on your face and you're being cordial, immediately they're going to want to hear what you have to say, or at least feel more open to listening to what you have to say. You can also use facial expressions to express kind of like what we talked about before with emotions. And so if something was really disgusting, you can change your facial expression. You want to be careful with how you present that too. The negative aspect is, once again, kind of having that monotone, is we're being very stonic in the face. We're not showing any emotion. And when you don't give any emotion to what you are trying to convey in a speech, you show that you're not invested in it, that you're not passionate about it. And if we're not passionate, invested in what we are trying to share, why should anybody sit and listen to us? We do not want to waste our audience's time when they come to hear us. The next one is articulation and enunciation. We use that to our advantage because it kind of goes along with our pace. If we're at a fluent pace, people are better able to understand us, but we have to really articulate everything that we say. That means that we're giving emphasis maybe on the beginning or end sounds. And when that ties into enunciation, that means we're pronouncing things correctly and in a way that they were meant to be, so that the meaning isn't getting lost. So if you flip that to the negative side, if we're not being articulate in our words, then we're not being audible and understood. And if we're not pronouncing things correctly with our enunciation, we could come off as disrespectful. I one time had a speech that was presented to me and they used an author's name that I happened to follow really closely to, and they mispronounced the author's last name. And I thought, geez, that's really disrespectful. You didn't even take the time to learn how to correctly say their name. So we really want to make sure that we are articulating and enunciating words appropriately. The next one is gestures. Gestures are fun because we can really bring a speech to life when we're using our whole body, whether that's walking across the stage and really showing that we want everybody to be engaged and we're keeping them all connected with what we have to say, as well as using your hands. You can use those to express things as well. If something was quite large or we felt really small and we bring those actions into us, it's a way to convey that. The flip side of this as well on the negative is that I have seen people that overuse their gestures, and I tend to stop hearing what they're saying and start watching their actions, and I just get lost at all the hand movements and whatever craziness they're doing with their body, that I don't retain anything that the speech was actually supposed to be about. You also want to make sure you have something, though. There needs to be a happy medium, because if you just stand there stiff as a board like you're scared to death, it's going to show and your speech isn't going to be as effective. The next one is pause and vocal fillers. Pause and vocal fillers can be used to our advantage because they can really add dramatic effect to what we're having to say. If we just said a very important statement and we give it a pause, not only are we allowing a moment for that statement to be said in a way that gives it a more powerful effect, but we're also giving it a moment for our audience members to reflect on what we just said. Those vocal fillers, for me, on the negative aspect, I think of times when I've heard speeches and I've heard a lot of ums and ands, and that pause of, oh, I kind of lost my spot. What's my next thought supposed to be? You can get sidetracked in a speech really easily when you use too many of those. So you really want to make sure that you're prepared and you're practiced, so that when you have your final performance, it's professional, it's got fluidity, it's smooth, and it sounds good. Posture is the last one on the list, and the positive aspects of posture is, once again, correlating with facial expressions and your eye contact. You want to come in and show that you are ready to share what you have to say by your posture. You want to stand tall. You want to really be present. You also can use it as a way to, enact with the gestures as far as what you were trying to say. Maybe they said they felt small, and you bring yourself in. Your posture kind of bends around because it's really showing how you felt. The negative aspect of this is that if we come in and it's slumped the entire time, and we show maybe that we're scared, or this is the last thing we wanted to be doing, or maybe we're agitated, that's going to bleed into the speech itself, and it's not going to be enjoyable for its audience members. And once again, it's a waste of time for those that came to watch it, and it's a waste of time that you took to give it because you didn't, perform it in a way that was meaningful and professional. Those are my thoughts on the negative aspects and the positive aspects. Take care.